Hey there, YouTube. I am here today to present to you The Science of Getting Rich. It's huge. It's making my life shift, and I'm going through a deep dive into chapters 1. Actually, it's just the very beginning, and chapter number 1, I plan on doing more of these, but I also do quite a few videos for fatherhood, parenting, discussing a bunch of that. Got 2 children, 2 boys, and married, have a lovely wife, and we've actually got some content up here as well. I'm building out the channel. I would love it if this is something that you enjoy. If you take a look around, if you could like and subscribe, that'd be fantastic. And share if it's something that you like and enjoy. Again, I do Fatherhood for the Rest of Us. You can find me over on Facebook or YouTube, and I also have a podcast called Fatherhood for the Rest of Us. And if you are so inclined and interested in the science of getting rich and discussing fatherhood anymore, head on over to Facebook and join the group Fatherhood for the Rest of Us. It's a private group for fathers only, and check it out. Thanks for showing up today. Really appreciate having you here. What I'm doing today is just doing a deep dive in on the science of getting rich as presented by myself, applying my experiences, everything that I've gone through the past couple of years in creating Fatherhood for the Rest of Us, and taking that really deep dive into just the space of personal development, coaching, multiple coaches, etc. So basically, I'm going to go through some introductions here. Who am I? Who I am today. You know, I'm doing a podcast on fatherhood, very focused on fatherhood. I'm a father of 2. I'm a husband to 1. Beautiful wife, Meg Hanley. I've got 2 young boys, Finnegan and Liam. I do a podcast. I've been doing it now for a little over a year. I've interviewed well over 50 fathers and had conversations with many, many others. I've put a lot of effort into trying to figure out how to be the best father I can be. I put a lot of effort into sharing my knowledge with others. I put a lot of effort into just being honest with who I am and making changes, and sometimes for the better, sometimes for worse, but adapting to my day, adapting to my surroundings, and adapting to everything else that's around there. And that is consistent, ongoing. I don't feel like I've ever arrived. I do have aha moments. And one of those aha moments was inspired by this book, The Science of Getting Rich. And I'm very excited to share it because it brings a lot of things to the forefront for me. It really helps to coalesce everything that I've been studying and going through and experiencing over the past few years. And now I can look back thanks to this book and go, aha, 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 lots of ahas, right? So where was I? Man, a year and a half ago, right now, I'd be drinking probably 6 or 7 beers right now at this point in the evening. I'd be watching TV. I'd be playing a video game. I'd be hanging out with my children, but I probably wouldn't be giving them the attention that I'm giving them now. I would be hanging out with my wife, but I wouldn't be focused on our relationship. I'd probably just be focused on how my day went. I'd be focused on, my next beer, going to sleep, rinse and repeat, living the groundhog life. And it's not like it was a bad place. It's not like I was in a bad place. It's just not where I wanted to be anymore. And nothing bad happened. I have a lot of conversations with people like, well, did you hit rock bottom? What was the turning point? And in all honesty, I realized that I had cruised through my life without taking as much participation in it that I would have liked to have. And I also realized that I had done really well inadvertently. I make the statement that I landed a 6-figure job, but I put the work in, I put the effort in. Don't get me wrong, but it wasn't done with intention. And I'm sure that everybody would be like, "Well, yeah, too bad for you." Yeah, kind of too bad in the sense of I got to this point. I actually got some really nice raises and did really well. Again, unintentionally, just by working. And that's not saying I just wasn't doing it strategically. I wasn't doing it intentionally. I didn't make it a conscious choice to do well. And I found that to be very frustrating. I said, well, here I am I've done well. I can't even figure out how I need to reproduce this. I need to take it to the next level. And that's where I've been probably for the past, couple of years is understanding that I want to be intentional, and I want to get to the next level. And how do I do that? Right. So that goes into where am I going? Where am I going? And that is being intentional. That is putting all the work into the studies. That is, living my life by making choices consciously, by having some sort of foresight, by having some type of plan or a goal, which isn't something that I always had before. A lot of this, I am in what a lot of people call being the uncomfortable zone, going through being uncomfortable, putting myself into situations such as this one right now, this presentation, putting myself out there saying, all right, well, if we don't start now, we will never start. And so where am I going is I'm taking it to the next level. And this book, The Science of Getting Rich, has really etched a place in my mind because it enables me, again, to look back over what I've done, see where I've found success, and then I find it in this book, and it's like, oh, I was successful because of this reason in this book. So it actually outlines a framework. It gives you a framework. It says, listen, do some of these things, or actually do all of these things, and you will have success. So that is where I'm going right now, and I'm doing that by going through this book, giving this presentation, and taking value to my fatherhood group, which is who I'm out there serving right now. I'm out there serving other men who have been where I've been, who have had difficulties making the next leap or going to the next step, or they feel like there's something blocking them. They feel like there's blockage. That's what I'm doing. All I'm doing is providing tools, teaching how to use them, teaching how I've used them, and seeing if it's a good fit for them. And in the realm of allowing them to pick up these tools and use them themselves, and being able to apply them in their own lives. So look, the introduction to the book, that's the first step we're going to go through here. It's not the whole book tonight. I really probably should label this deep dive part 1, introduction to the book of The Science of Getting Rich. If you're not familiar with the author, and not a lot of people are, it is Wallace Wattles. He was an author. He wrote this book it was published in 1910, and he died a year later. He's what they call a New Thought writer. I think I put the definition of what that is into the next spot. So his writing has been widely quoted and remains in print in the New Thought and self-help movements. We are obviously the space that I am in and around. I've immersed myself in is the self-help movement or progressive help for others. He is also, to me, the predecessor of Napoleon Hill, who wrote his book, Think and Grow Rich, which is also another landmine, just in this space, huge. So if you are familiar with Napoleon Hill and you've connected any dots that he has put in Think and Grow Rich, this book will bolster that. And it was written, I want to say a good 30 years prior. So it's kind of, if we stand on the shoulders of giants, this book came before Napoleon Hill's. And if you read this book, it gives you almost a better foundation as to where Napoleon Hill came from and went into. So as it relates to the New Thought, I thought that was something that we would want to explore. It was a religious movement which developed in the United States in the 19th century. You'll hear a lot of these terms being bandied about today in the self-help space, especially with all the different types of coaching that there's going on. But you'll hear God or infinite intelligence. You'll hear divinity dwells with each person, that all people are spiritual beings. The highest spiritual principle is loving one another unconditionally, and teaching and healing one another. And our mental states are carried forward into manifestation and become our experience in daily living. You hear this everywhere. You hear this from Bob Proctor. You hear this from Bob Proctor. You hear this Zig Ziglar, Jim Rohn, Tony Robbins, Brian Tracy, not so much, but with Brian Tracy, if you're familiar with him, you can go through this book and you can take this same framework and it overlays perfectly for what he is doing and bringing through for himself. And he's been doing it for 30, 40 years. Jack Canfield, Joe Spinoza, all those people, we can trace it back to this New Thought movement, which I think I get to it later. I get to it later as to where that strains from. The primary principle of this book is give more use value than you receive in cash value. And I said this sentiment's echoed by Zig Ziglar. If you're not familiar with Zig Ziglar, he was a big motivational speaker. He just recently passed away in the past few years. He would, you help other people get what they want. He would give in his seminars, he would say, listen, if you come into this seminar, if you spend, for example, and this one was just $9, if you take one idea out of here, if you take one, if what comes out of here takes and puts you into a different stratosphere, a different trajectory in any way, shape, or form for the better, you are going to receive much more in cash value, much more in use value than what you paid for in cash value. I know I put a couple posts out there that says, listen, if you're willing to, a pack of cigarettes in some states costs $9. A six pack of your favorite craft beer is going to be more than $9. Your favorite martini, not happy hour price, his chances is going to be $9 or more. And the use value of that, to me, is diminished as soon as it's gone, right? Or maybe for the evening. You determine that. But I just want to give a couple examples of other things that you might spend cash on, and their use value is questionable. And my point here is to give you way more use value than what you're paying in cash. So if you practice this principle, this primary principle, you are on your way to getting rich. And we're gonna keep discussing it. Example items of other things that you would pay for, and you may pay a lot for: mechanics tools, computers, calculator, a lottery ticket, raffle tickets, and of course this BAMF webinar. Let's look at the example. I know that I worked as a mechanic. I worked in many garages. You would go and you would spend all kinds of money on tools. The Mack truck would come by, you'd pay it down, but you pay it down over time. And once you've paid it all off, those tools are still working. Those tools are still, doing what you need it for. Same thing can be said for computers. I don't know how much I could spend $200 on a computer right now. What can you accomplish with a computer? So if we look at the use value that we give somebody else versus just the straight cash value, we can see that it's worth it. What is that providing that other person? Pragmatical. The book is self-described as being pragmatical, and just so that we're all using the same language and understand what that means. It just means that you're dealing with the practical rather than the theoretical. So this has been seen in practice and has been practiced and is not just a theory. He also notes that it's not a treatise, and I had to look it up, just because I didn't understand what the whole word meant. So it's a written work dealing formally and systematically with the subject. So there's really no, I wouldn't say, formality in this book, and there's really there's the framework that doesn't tell you how to lay it out in a system. It has these tenets to it. Get rich first. So the first thing he says is you go get rich first. You may philosophize afterward. And the question is really, who wants to spend out more time figuring out exactly how or why it is done, and just do it? So that is his recommendation, very first in the beginning of the book. It's just take this and apply it. So who is this for? I'm directing this towards fathers, so I'm just going to say this is for fathers who want results and who are willing to take the conclusions of science as a basis for action, taking what they've seen as knowledge 100% and irrefutably, and take it forward and apply it in their own lives. What is science, right? Again, I just like to break it on down. This book it's very simple and easy to get through, but you've got to have the foundational aspects, and you have to just really put it all out there, lay it out brick by brick, and build as you go along. So I just want to call out, what is science? What would I consider science? What would you consider science? And I put the definition out here so we can just kind of agree on what it is. So a systematic enterprise that builds and organizes knowledge in the form of testable explanations and predictions about the universe. So, if we know that, H2O makes water, we have a system that we've got the tables, we've got the atom count, we've got the mass. We know for just about certain that if we use this system in this way, these are going to be the results. Roots or fruits? Again, we're in here and we're talking about the science of it, but we're also asking that you can philosophize about it. You can sit there and you can think about it. And I love this quote from Jim Rohn, billionaire, one of the other guys out there. He was around in and around about the time of Zig Ziglar, Brian Tracy, and all these other guys that were out there just getting it done. There are some things you don't have to know how it works, only that it works. While some people are studying the roots, others are picking the fruit. It just depends on which end of this you want to get on. I love this line. I mean, it really opened up my eyes. And I was like, wow, I could understand and do everything somebody else is doing, do each little piece individually, figure it all out for myself, or I could kind of leapfrog and I can get to this point and I could say, I just want to do this part. I just want to pick the fruit, So that's also about this book. I love this other quote too, by this German philosopher Hegel, who is cited by the author as one of the philosophers that he studied in order to come to all these situations and in order to develop this. We do not need to be shoemakers to know if our shoes fit, and just as little have we any need to be professionals to acquire knowledge of matters of universal interest. Again, we don't really need. Do you need to know how your shoes are made to know if they fit? Do you need to know what love is do you need to know everything about it in order to be able to love? Or do you just do it? Looks like I doubled down on that slide. So he asked us to take the author asked us to take his word as faith in this book. And again, I just want to hone down on the language and agree on what we're talking about. And so if we say, what is faith? Definition would be complete trust or confidence in someone or something. I want to say I've also got so the line is expected that the reader will take fundamental statements upon faith, acting upon them without fear or hesitation. Again, if you have faith in something, why would you wait to take action? How long do you want to wait in order to realize the truth? Or how long do you want to wait to realize the lie? Either way, making the decision is the best thing you can do. You can act in faith that something will happen, and you can stop once you realize or believe that it is not. I think that was a personal note. I can't be 100% sure. I knew I had a note, though. Failure is impossible. This is a line from the book. Failure is impossible. What does that mean? I don't. It's really kind of hard to grasp. So I grabbed a couple of these lines from famous motivators. But what would you attempt to do if you knew you could not fail? Tony Robbins, and I'd actually thought that was a Tony Robbins line. I had to do some more research. He was an American pastor, and he had this Hour of Power television program from 1970 to 2010. And if you've ever listened to Tony Robbins, a lot of people say they stole the Hour of Power from Tony Robbins. Well, it looks like we're getting to the source. This is certainly something that Tony Robbins has said. What would you do if you knew you could not fail? Failure, as Tony Robbins says, is only the end if you choose to see it that way. So when you get to when you quit, when you let go, when you finally stop, that to me is kind of failure. And then, how do you coin that, right? How do you say that what has happened is failure if you're able to learn and move on from that? I think that also failure, a lot of people can use as an anchor, and this book does not address that, but it does say failure is impossible. This is from the book as well, and this is when we talked about the new thought in the beginning, the monistic theory of the universe, the theory that one is all and all is one. One substance manifests itself seeing many elements, and the material world is of Hindu origin, which boggles my mind because it's one that not a lot of us in the Western Hemisphere are very familiar with, and nor are we familiar with that it's the foundation of all the Oriental philosophies. I listened to a gentleman by the name of Alan Watts who cites that Buddhism is simply Hinduism stripped down for export. It's partially truth. As I did some more research on it, I found out that wasn't wholly true, but it does lend itself to Hinduism is very deep and very complex, and Buddhism is a little bit cleaner and neater in a lot of different ways. And I think that is what Alan Watts was alluding to in that. But the whole of the idea is the all is one and all being one, and the idea that substance manifests through us and our ideas is of the Hindu origin, which is also just new news for me. As much as I've been involved in studying a lot of this, like I said, mostly over the past few years, but realizing that Buddhism and Taoism, that stems from Hinduism, which begs, it doesn't necessarily beg it, like this book says. You can go dig deeper, you can learn more if you'd like, or you can take it at face value. So where was this plan devised? The plan of action laid down was deduced from the conclusion. This is directly from the book, and I'm just reading it out for you guys. Again, this is a deep dive into it. The plan of action laid down herein was deduced from the conclusions of philosophy. It has been thoroughly tested and bears the supreme test of practical experiment. It works. If you wish to know how the conclusions were arrived at, read the writings of the authors mentioned in the book. And if you wish to simply reap the fruits of their philosophy in actual practice, I've got it here in bold. Read this book and do exactly as it tells you to do. I don't know about you, but I've not always been the very best at doing that in my entire life. So my intent here is to follow through and read what this book tells me to do and stick with it. So here we are. So that was essentially, let me see if I can go back here one page. Let me go back one page, not all the way back there. Now you're going to know all my Google slides. Great. Let me go back one slide there. And I'm going to be so pissed I'm not recording, Corey. I think I'm recording. This part here, and I'll pause it for a second. I'm going to cut here too, Corey. In the gist of this is, and I've got it right here. I know I had another note. Is you can keep studying this shit. You can keep, trying to determine whether or not you see it applied anywhere else. Or you can just take action. You can start to believe what it is that you're reading. You can really start to put some of this stuff in faith, taking it by faith. I'll pause it there for a second. Stop sharing. Corey, do you have any questions up to this point? Do you have any? So getting back to it, again, you can keep studying this. You can keep, and this is where the root is. You can go to the root, or you can just jump right into it, or you can get the fruit. And for me, it's like, all right, wow, that's kind of revolutionary of a concept, because it sounds like to me, it sounds like, why are we working so hard? Why are we making it so hard on ourselves? Because that is in essence what I'm taking away from this book. That is in essence what I'm taking away from, like, Jim Rohn, when he talks about the root and the fruit. So chapter 1, the right to be rich. It sounds like some type of snowflake entitlement shit, just kind of where we are. The fact remains that it's not possible to live a complete, and this is from the book right here. The fact remains that it's not possible to live a complete or successful life unless one is rich. No man can rise to his greatest possible height in talent or soul development unless he has plenty of money. For to unfold the soul and to develop talent, he must have many things to use and cannot have these things unless he has money to buy them with. This immediately, for me, just kind of impacted me, and I was like, well, this doesn't make much sense. I don't agree with it. I was not in agreement with this book probably the first time I read through it. What I did though here is let's just spell it out, right? So here we go. We've got education. Corey, this is the interactive part. So we've got education. We've got like business stuff. What if we start a business? Well, that means that I'm going to have to go do, I need advertising. I'm going to have to pay for advertising. I'm going to have to pay for marketing. I'm going to have to pay for a staff. What if I go ahead and I want to become a mechanic? I'm going to need to go, I'm going to need to buy the tools. I'm going to need to rent the space. I'm going to have to take the classes. Again, the education's up top there, but even that education is going to take a lot of money. And, we want to expand on ourselves. If we intend to grow, we have to educate at some point. And the same thing with like soul development. Where's that going to happen without the money or the space to do it within? And we'll get into that in a little bit too. But so what I wanted to do here, and this is the interactive part, is to let's take one of those. Which one, Corey, would you which one would you want to look at first? If you were starting a business, if you were trying to get your education, if you were doing soul development, what would you need?
College degree.
Okay. So we would say education. All right. Then we would say, over here, college degree. What's that going to take?
If we're a mechanic, maybe some certifications. The college degree is probably going to take, $10,000, $20,000 just to get started there.
Okay. Hold on a second. What's that going to, let me get back. College degree. What's that going to get for you? So 20,000 is going to get you what?
Maybe just a piece of paper that says you can do the work to let a shop hire you.
That just gets us at a branch. That just gets a piece of paper, which gets you saying a job?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, so, and what's the job get you? I mean, so, but it really.
Yeah, not much. It gives you a little paycheck at the end of the 2 weeks, If you're lucky, and if you have a good job, maybe, a couple $1,000 a week, and that's on the high end.
Right. So what is your plan with that paycheck, right? What is it that, what are you trying to get with that paycheck?
Go home, pay bills, buy food.
And that's all going to, I mean, you're just paying money, right? So, I mean, this is just all money to spend money to spend money.
Exactly.
So, are you familiar with Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad?
No, I haven't really done anything as far as finance books, except for Financial Peace University.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, and you're cruising with that. You're doing awesome.
Absolutely.
So the one thing that I think a takeaway in this book is that when you go to that job, and this is the same thing in Rich Dad Poor Dad, you're going to that job teaches you some more, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's more. That's where you get some more education, if that makes sense to you.
Yep.
So you get like more education, and you continue to learn there. So I mean, the same thing's going to happen with over here. You've got to do what we talked about, even just the soul development. Where does that take place at, and how are you going to do that without money? You're going to need money, right? You need money to do all this stuff, right? To keep living, to exist.
Yep.
Okay. I really just wanted to use the mind map.
That's pretty cool.
That's fun. So let's get back in here. I have to escape out, but I also want to just kind of to illustrate that in order to continue on this path of if we need things to grow, and in order to express ourselves fully again in talent and soul development, our greatest possible selves, we kind of need money. Let me see if I think it gets down here below. So I just want to illustrate that as well. And so just a simple truth from the book, man develops in mind, soul, and body, making use of things. And this is the key here, right? Society, our current society, is so arranged that you must have money in order to become the possessor of things. And I think that that encompasses not just trinkets and baubles, but the full expression of self. And when we talk about the right to be rich, and this is all done within the context of the Western philosophy. Could you go be a monk somewhere? Maybe, and live a good life, and maybe live out some type of full life. It's possible, but into the life that you've been born, you need money again in this society to make things happen. The object of all life is development. So again, taking another definition and just blowing it up. Development. What does that mean? It means that you've got to evolve, or it means evolve. It means grow. It means mature, expand, and progress. So that is certainly the truth. It says here, right? Is there any form of life that you're aware of that does not develop, evolve, or grow? And my question, and the sub question, can this line be refuted? If we go out in nature today, a seed sprouts and it grows and it grows and it grows and it grows. If water drops into a puddle, the puddle continues to grow. As humans, generally we grow for our bodies grow to a certain extent, but I really want to focus too on this word expansion. And as I've got down here in my notes, the universe is expanding. You're essentially, if we take some of the monotheistic theory out of here, you're essentially one with the universe. How can you not be expanding as well? So if you are continuing to grow, and the object of all life is development, and all things in nature grow, mature, expand, and make progress, how are you any different than anything else that's natural in this world? So I really just want to throw that out there and put that expansion in there. We know that the universe is expanding at a more rapid rate, which could explain for, if we are so inclined, we can say then humanity too is expanding at a more rapid rate as well. And I'm so inclined. So there you go. Let me get this back up there. So next one. And this is from the book. Everything that lives has inalienable rights to all the development it is capable of attaining. If this is true for one, it is true for all. Are you any different than the man or woman who has everything in terms of innate capability? What makes you any different than anybody else born into this world? It's not simply We know of all kinds of people who come from poor backgrounds that are rich. We know from people that have disabilities that have the late Stephen Hawking is another one who's went through a certain phase of his life, he's disabled, but he's one of the greatest minds and created so much for us. And he did it with like barely being able to wiggle his wrist. And I really love you to think of this line too, as it pertains to any thoughts against getting rich, or if you come from a poor background where there wasn't a whole lot, that instead of saying I come from a poor background, I'm poor, I'm a poor man, think of this line. It says, I'm no different than the richest men in the world. What makes you any different than the richest men in the world in terms of body, molecular, just total consistency and ability? And I've got to credit this line to Steve Miller of the Manly Club. He had that in powerful speaking, and to me, it's a great line. And you are no different than anybody else out there. There's nothing that separates you or makes you any different from some of the richest men in the world. Did I double down on this? I did double down on that. So the other word that he uses in there, and when he talks about all things natural, is that the word unfold. And when you think about unfolding, if you're not familiar with the golden ratio, it unfolds just as you will, and just as all things in nature do. And the golden ratios, the give unto others as you would have give unto them. The golden rule: treat others as you would treat yourself, and that will be reciprocated. There's a funny thing about the golden rule, the golden ratio, though, and that is that it's not 1 for 1. Let's actually look that up, because the golden ratio is actually 1 to 6. So it's you get 1 to 1.6. So let's just say that you go out there and you give somebody something of yourself, and it is of immense value. I would still say that this to me would be worth $9. If I hand this out to you, I would expect the return to be today 1.6 of that, so 60% on top of that. So we'll just say times 9, right? So that right there is $14 in reciprocation of use value just immediately, if we're just looking at applying the golden ratio. And I want to take that one step further, and because if you're not familiar with the compound interest, this is a fun exercise. If you've never done the compound interest of a question, if somebody gives you and says, I'll give you a penny today and double that every day, like not just a penny, the value that you get for 30 days, would you take that, or would you take, I think it's like $3 million? And you just kind of say to yourself, well, I think I would take like the $3 million today. Well, if you did that and said, compound interest, I think it's 2 times the above, right? 2 times the above equals 2 times. And you did that for 30 days, that's 1 penny. Should get down there, right? You're actually going to get, over the course of, did I do that right? That looks right? That's millions, isn't it? You're going to get millions of dollars versus you start off with that penny. And I like to apply that actually to the golden ratio, because if we put out there 1 and that's doubled back, it's really, I think it's a greater number than that. And I think that the golden ratio is that number that we see coming back. So we have the opportunity to expand and grow. And if we grow in accordance to all things natural, which is what we're applying right in this moment, is the tendency to grow naturally, which we as humans do as being natural, then we're going to grow at this ratio. We have that ability to span out at that in that ratio. And that's going to, each time this spins out, it's going to have to spin out further outside of that, conical shape. And, before you know it, those small changes that seem relatively insignificant are going to just continue to expand. And I think that that's really important to kind of look at and keep in your mind. Ran out of time on my golden ratio stuff. Got to the golden ratio. We literally have no choice to unfold. I mean, we're natural. This is going to be happening whether or not we really want it to happen. The book's going to go ahead and tell us how we're going to do that, though, by applying certain elements. Says no, and this is, it's huge, right? It was really tough for me to try to break some of this other stuff down in the end for the sake of time, and I really didn't want to do that. So we're just going to kind of walk our ways through the rest of this chapter. But it says to be really rich does not mean to be satisfied or content with a little. No man ought to be satisfied with a little if he was capable of using and enjoying more. Working with less than necessary to achieve maximum results is a disservice to the self. Why would you put yourself at a disadvantage if it's not necessary? Right. So if you're capable of achieving those riches, you're going to be able to continue to expand that at a greater rate. So the purpose of nature is the advancement and unfoldment. I think we talked a little bit about that. Every man should have all that can contribute to the power, elegance, beauty, and richness of life. Again, just it's powerful stuff. And he talks about advancement, the process of promoting a cause. So this is a definition spot where we say, what is it that we want to do? We want to advance. We want to grow. I believe that was one of the words that we used in, what is development, evolve. But advancement to me would also fall under development. So it's powerful stuff. He talks a lot in this book about the Bible, and I think that he's that's the time of things happening then, and that's again the Western philosophy is predominantly from the Bible and Christianity, and he says to be content. He goes, your primary cause, right, is life and living that and having a rich life. And he goes, to be content with less is sinful. I'm like, wow, dude, that's kind of powerful. He goes, that is to live your life without achieving your purpose, expanding your life so that it was lived for the ultimate greatness. Wasteful, shameful, and as he wrote, sinful. Those are my words. That is to live your life without achieving your purpose would be sinful. So in the book, every person naturally wants to become all that they're capable of becoming. This desire to realize innate possibilities is inherent in human nature. We cannot help wanting to be all that we can. If you've ever felt like a longing to be doing something and you feel like repressing it is making you cold and listless, that's you holding that back. That's you holding all that you're capable of becoming back. I love this. Success in life is becoming what you want to be. Success in life isn't just getting by. Success in life is becoming what you want to be. And I think that that's very powerful too. So this is my line right here. Depression is what comes from this. Sadness, knowing that you're capable of not being able to fulfill that capability, bringing value to others' lives, and not finding your own route to express that can be devastating. So if we don't seek to become rich and expand ourselves to fulfill all that we know that we're capable of, it again can bring on some kind of depression, and we sit there and we don't feel like we're adding and contributing, not necessarily just to society, to our friends, to our lives. And that is the purpose of life, is to expand and contribute and give to others and live a good life for ourselves. To understand the science of getting rich is therefore, this is the book, the most essential of all knowledge. So pay attention here. We need to get you out of survival mode and into a thrival mindset. If you are strictly in the survival mode, you are no use to anyone other than yourself. And this just means like if we're just clawing and scratching, we're focused on a really small piece. This is something that's been echoed the past few weeks in the sentiments of the podcast and some of these other spaces. If we just focus on what we see right in front of us, we're not able to draw ourselves into a bigger picture. We're not able to see some of the other things that we're capable of achieving because we're essentially eating the elephant in the room. And that's kind of what survival mode is. It's just looking at what's the next thing I need to do. What's the next thing in line that needs to get taken care of versus how can I accomplish all of this? How can I take in so much more? And that's that's where we get the chance to thrive. There's nothing wrong with this book. There's nothing wrong with wanting to get rich. The desire for riches is really the desire for. I love this line too. The desire for riches is really the desire for a richer, fuller, and more abundant life. As I stated here, this is elaborated later in the book, but I really want to key into that. The desire for riches is really the desire for a richer, fuller, more abundant life. And I'll just go ahead and say it right now because it's on like chapter 3 or it's somewhere deeper in the book where he comes in and he says it's not the desire to lead like this simple, simple is not the right word, swinishly is how he put it. It's not that we want to live like pigs. It's not that we want to have power and dominion over people. That's also touched upon later in the book. Is that we simply want to express, I'll say our greatness. We want to be able to contribute on a high level all that we can, giving people jobs, getting people work, and offering. And this is other stuff that's touched on later in the book. We're getting towards the end of here, but I want to. The purpose of this is to get you stirred up for this book and see what there's in here that you may have touched on different aspects of it in some of all your reading even coaching. Personal motivation, it all coalesces in this book, and it really comes together very well. It ties in. So throughout the rest of this book, my idea for this was just to get you started, to get you thrumming, to get you humming, because it's completely powerful. So there are 3 motives which we live for. This is from the book. We live for the body, we live for the mind, we live for the soul. As he calls an imbalance in these calls for course correction at some point during life. This is noted in the Grow Model book, which I've actually got over here. We'll search for more. So I don't have that super handy. If any one of these pieces, everybody's done, most people have done like a life wheel or some other type of life balance worksheet. They've all gone through these different aspects, and what happens is, anything that kind of throws off an imbalance. If anybody's ever had a ceiling fan and the blade isn't hooked up just right, it causes like an irritant to happen. While of course, if you feel like that'll make pearls, yada yada yada, that's fine. But an imbalance calls for course correction. We need to make that adjustment so that we have a good, nice, smooth life. So wherever there's unexpressed possibility. And I love this. Wherever there's unexpressed possibility or function not performed, there's an unsatisfied desire. Desire is possibility seeking expression, or function seeking performance. I'm going to do that again. Unexpressed possibility. What is possible for you in your life? All right? Or function not performed. What is it? What is it that you should be doing? What if there's somebody out there waiting on you? And you can't perform this function that you were put here in life for. And that's like this unsatisfied desire, possibility, something that you're capable, your strongest desire means that's a possibility. And it's just seeking to be let out. And that's powerful stuff, guys. Powerful. A man's highest happiness is found in the bestowal of benefits on those he loves. Love finds its most natural and spontaneous expression in giving. This is really kind of the end of chapter 1, and it's kind of like it's a uppercut to the gut. The man who has nothing to give cannot fill his place as a husband or father, as a citizen or as a man. And you just, kind of take that all in. If you can't give everything you're capable of giving because uh, you don't see this right to grow rich, because you don't feel like you should be rich, because you've been taught and told that everything, you feel like this is your place. It's, your place is not to be seen. Your place is to just perform your job. Your place is just to pay the bills. Your place is just the small cog. Are you doing yourself a service? Are you doing humanity a service by believing that? I've got a note here: being able to love and give science equals truth. That's a question mark for me to study. I think there's a couple links here. I'm just racing through the end here, Cords. Give me a second. This is another line right from the end of the book. If you neglect this study, you are derelict in your duty to yourself, to God, and humanity. For you can render to God and humanity no greater service than to make the most of yourself. I went to go grab a couple of the stories. The biggest one I think that most of us know from the Bible, it's really the only one I know, is the talents one. I think I chose a different story, though, where I don't know who does it, but gives out the gold coins, and three guys comes out, and one guy, he has no money. The other guy buried his, and the other guy doubled his, and he said, "Hey, man, I'm going to choose you and keep you because you were able to use your talent. You were able to use your gift." Each of, and this is some stuff I grabbed from the Bible today, just because I think it dovetails well into what the author is sharing here. So it says, each of us has a unique talents and abilities. Most of us are not dynamic preachers or wealthy philanthropists, but our contribution is just as important. There are varieties of gifts, but the same Spirit, and the varieties of services, but the same as the Lord, and there are varieties of activities, but it's the same God who activates all of them in everyone. To each is given the manifestation of the Spirit for the common good. And this is really what this book is talking to. What is it within you that so desires to be let out? And again, this neglect this study, you are derelict to yourself, and the duty to yourself, to God and humanity. For you can render to God and humanity no greater service than to make the most of yourself. And Corey, that's going to wrap it up for the book for today. That's just the introduction and the first chapter. Love to hear your takeaways, thoughts,